Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning on North Grand. I'm excited to be here joined by President Megan Green and other advocates as I prepare to sign this historic bill. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the four youth that we lost to horrific traffic violence at South Grand and Forest Park, as well as the tragic crash at Bates and Morgan Ford. They're tragic reminders to all St. Louis drivers. Slow down, obey the rules of the road, or it may cost you your life. But St. Louis has to do more. Like all violence, traffic violence tears families and communities apart. And to those who say that they feel scared on our roads, I hear you. Parents in our city, like myself, are asking ourselves, how can we teach our teenagers how to drive in a city where the rules of the road feel more like suggestions? How can we protect people no matter how they choose to get around? Walking, biking, driving, and public transit. It's these questions that brought us here today, and it's a long time coming. Last year, my administration solicited feedback from the community about how to use the unprecedented resources at our disposal to make change St. Louisans can see and feel in their communities. The result? Improving infrastructure and street safety ranked as a top priority for St. Louis residents. We also held 2 town halls on South Grand and North Grand, just a few blocks from where we're standing today at the Boys and Girls Club. The message is the same. No matter the color of your skin, or your zip code, or what side of Del Mar you live on, traffic violence and reckless driving is an issue that touches our entire city. And it's getting worse. In 2020, 17% of fatal traffic crashes in the U.S. involved pedestrians. In the city of St. Louis, that figure was 28% in 2021. The United States has had a steady increase in the number of pedestrian fatalities from 2010 to 2020. Pedestrian deaths increased by 54%, while all other fatalities increased by 13%. 2022 was the second most deadly year in terms of traffic violence in our city's history after 2022 during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, St. Louis has never made a citywide plan or a citywide effort to address this important issue. That changes today. With the St. Louis Safer Streets Bill, the city is making our largest ever investment, not just in constructing traffic calming measures and funding major multimodal projects like the Brick Line Greenway, but also starting the long process of reimagining our road design and what that means to navigate our city. This bill will improve dangerous intersections and target areas, implement traffic studies that have been sitting on the shelf, and it also puts us on the path towards our city's first ever mobility and transportation master plan, which we need to access key federal grants and resources currently closed off to us. Traffic calming reduces violence on our streets, and the results are all around us. Just up the block, take a drive down Natural Bridge to see what traffic calming can look like in our city and how it's working successfully. According to MoDOT's preliminary analysis, the traffic circles and other improvements along Natural Bridge have reduced speeds by an average of 9 miles per hour. That's a life-saving difference. And while MoDOT is still analyzing data, it takes 3 years to establish traffic trends. The number of crashes is trending downwards as well. But engineering is just one part of street safety. We recognize the need to enhance education and enforcement. My administration is working to identify sustainable sources of funding for education. And while the police department wrote more than 8,000 speeding tickets last year and more than 2,700 for signal violations, we need to do more to hold reckless drivers accountable. That's why my administration has been exploring ways for the city to use automated traffic enforcement or red light cameras to discourage reckless driving across St. Louis. Studies have shown the effectiveness of red light cameras at reducing crashes and keeping people safe. A 2017 Northwestern University analysis of Chicago's red light cameras reduced injury crashes by 10% in surrounding locations. We're pulling together key departments to analyze operational and legal needs to implement red light cameras. Some key values guiding this work: safeguarding the privacy and restricting the use of any images and videos gathered by cameras, upholding due process, as outlined by the Missouri Supreme Court, using a data-driven strategy for deployment, and regularly assessing ticketing data to determine impact upon communities of color and efficacy of placement. We will continue to keep the public informed about our progress. Once we have a framework, we'll be sure to share it with our advocates as well. Again, I appreciate President Green for her leadership on this bill, as well as the local advocates who have pushed for these critical measures. Together, we will make St. Louis a better, safer place to get around, no matter how visitors and residents choose to get around. Thank you. God bless you. And now, President Megan Green.
Good morning. As we all know, traffic violence has become all too common in our community. Most of us have unfortunately had to get accustomed to, when we pull up to, when a light turns green, to sit there for a minute, look both ways before we go. We know that today we are taking a first step toward addressing traffic violence in our city, but there's much more that we have to do. This bill today is an example of both residents and local government working together to address very serious issues in our city. We know that St. Louisans both deserve to feel and be safe on our streets. This historic bill funds critical infrastructure improvements for our community. It includes having BPS work with traffic engineering consultants to examine existing lane configurations and develop roadway modifications that both meet demand, calm traffic, and enhance pedestrian, cyclist, and motorist safety. This includes things like painted and raised concrete bump outs, concrete medians, enhanced crosswalk markings, things that we know make us safer. This bill also includes much needed ADA and traffic calming improvements in 5 key corridors along Union, Grand, Kings Highway, Jefferson, and Goodfellow, and much needed sidewalk improvements. The Streets Department has over 3,893 open service requests right now for addressing sidewalk issues. This bill takes a much needed step in funding that gap. And we're funding safety improvements at the top 10 most dangerous crash locations in the city. But we know that investing in city infrastructure is just the first step to making our streets safer. We also need to address safety through education and enforcement. And I look forward to continuing to work in partnership with the mayor's office as we go into this next legislative session to ensure that both education and enforcement are top of mind and top of our legislative priorities. While traffic calming solutions will require time for the design, bid, and construction process, we know that some of these education and enforcement mechanisms can be implemented sooner. And this is the top priority of the Board of Aldermen, and I'm committed to working with both the new board when it is sworn in April and the mayor's office to find the funding for these programs. The St. Louis Safer Streets Bill also moves us closer to eliminating the archaic process of using ward capital to create safer streets. As many of you know, aldermen get $300,000 a year, which has historically been meant to fund all capital improvements for the wards, including traffic calming, speed humps, road paving. We know that this is just a drop in the bucket for the ongoing continual funds that are needed to ensure that we have safer streets. Relying on ward capital has made these changes difficult to enact and has created challenges in implementation and challenges in creating consistent reforms across the city. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work in partnership with the mayor's office as we work to ensure that we have long-term plans, long-term funding to address traffic violence in our city, while also putting in place mechanisms for greater education and greater enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rich Bradley, and I'm the president of the Board of Public Service for the city. The Board of Public Service, which houses much of the city's public works programs, will be tasked with carrying out and constructing the measures that we're discussing today. Deploying traffic calming solutions is a multi-step process. First, it begins with a study, then engineering design work, then open bidding, and then construction. Currently, the city has traffic studies in key areas that lack the funding to move forward. This bill will move these studies into the design phase. Once the designs are completed, the work is then bid out. And once the contracts are awarded, the construction and improvements will then begin. You see the maps around us and the data that BPS is reviewing to determine the final list of projects and locations. I want to stress that not all of the target areas will receive funding and improvements through this bill, although we are looking to maximize the impact by bringing traffic studies over the finish line and determining which intersections need the work the most and are prioritized. It took decades to build the infrastructure that we use every single day. This will not be work that we can complete overnight. Infrastructure work is very complicated, it takes time and a lot of thought. But BPS is moving as quickly as possible towards construction of road and pedestrian safety measures. The time frame for moving forward on these projects is as follows. The design process will begin in the spring of '23, and BPS has already retained designers and consultants who simply need this funding to start moving. Then the designs will be completed by the end of this year and the first quarter of 2024, and construction will begin in '24. We know the people are looking for action, and BPS, in conjunction with the street department and our planning and design agency, will work together to move these infrastructure improvements forward on a timeline while keeping all of our residents updated.
Cindy? Good morning. My name is Cindy Mentz, and I'm the CEO of TrailNet, the local nonprofit for advocating for safer walking and biking in transit. I want to thank you, Mayor Jones, for inviting TrailNet to speak on behalf of our neighbors who walk, bike, and use transit in the city of St. Louis. TrailNet has spent the last 3 decades advocating for the city to invest in our streets. Today, it's happening. I want to thank you, Mayor, and the members of the Board of Aldermen who have helped move this bill forward. I also want to thank the citizen advocates and community leaders who have recognized that traffic violence is one of our city's most pressing issues, and they raise their voices to make change happen. This investment is substantial. The funding allocated for this bill must be carefully applied on a comprehensive scale. For far too long, our city has relied upon fixing broken streets and sidewalks piece by piece without considering the network as a whole. For far too long, our most dangerous streets in our most overlooked neighborhoods have fallen into disrepair. This funding can begin to correct decades of disinvestment. This is a historic first step. However, while improving infrastructure is crucial, it will not on its own deter reckless driving or end the plague of traffic violence. We encourage the deployment of automated traffic enforcement that is equitable. We appreciate the mayor taking a comprehensive needs-based approach to safety, and we must ensure that street improvements address the safety of all users. TrailNet and our partners stand ready to work with the administration in pursuing a vision of zero traffic injuries and fatalities. Again, TrailNet is hopeful that the signing of this bill will lead to safer streets for all. So let's celebrate this moment and commit to the work ahead together. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Susan Troutman, and I serve as the CEO for Great Rivers Greenway. I want to thank the Mayor, President Green, Board of Aldermen, and our advocates and partners in the Board of Public Service just for the opportunity to be here today. We are all here because we heard from the community the importance of safety. As we began to design the Brickline Greenway, it was the community's voice that drove the design, and it is about calming the traffic and creating safe and beautiful places. With the passage of this board bill, though, we are now able to comprehensively address both sides of Grand Avenue and to make a really beautiful space that is safe and welcoming for all. Without this kind of comprehensive thinking, we would still be doing work piecemeal. So it makes a huge difference that the Board of Aldermen and the Mayor's Office and the advocates have all come together to work together. And I think the most important thing we can do in the Brickline Greenway is to make sure that together we are lifting up and serving the voices of the people who have told us how important it is to have a safe environment and to also have beautiful spaces to live, work, and play. So we are excited to work, again, in partnership with the city and with TrailNet and other partners here to bring the Brickline Greenway to life, and we will be starting here in North St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. My name's Liz Kramer. I'm the co-chair of the Community Mobility Committee. I'm joined by my co-chair, Christy Holland. We're so grateful to Mayor Jones, President Green, the Board of Aldermen, and the whole team that's gathered here today for their work to bring this historic investment to fruition. This investment is not just a nice to have in St. Louis. Our sidewalks and streets are deadly, as we've witnessed in the last few weeks with the horrific deaths of Corntrell McKinley, Anthony Robinson, Richard Boyd, Brianna Dentman Johnson at Forest Park Parkway and Grand, and with the maiming of Janae Edmondson downtown, in addition to the 20 people who were killed walking and biking in 2022. For years, we've lived with streets that exacerbate the recklessness of drivers, and no one in our city should live in fear for their lives as they go from place to place. In the very near future, as Mr. Bradley outlined, we will look back at this moment as a sea change, when we begin looking at transportation comprehensively, where we're looking across the city, across ward boundaries, across different modes of transportation. We will be working proactively, guided by our completed and adopted mobility plan that will shape a long-term strategy that allows us not just to have good design and good building, but good maintenance, good education, and strong enforcement that's fair and equitable. This historic investment is a down payment. We have so much work to do, not just to change our built environment, but to change our culture. We have to be consistent as we begin to rebuild and reimagine what our relationship to traveling around St. Louis can be. Because this change is long-term, we know that this funding is really a chance for us to make some needed improvements right now. We'll be able to quickly and efficiently see those improvements that everyone else has described: ADA crosswalks, traffic calming, greenways, and so much more. How this work happens is absolutely critical because these projects are going to set the tone for a culture shift around our vision of St. Louis that's a great place to get around, on foot, on bike, in scooters, on the bus, in your car. And the Community Mobility Committee is looking forward to working in partnership with the Mayor's Office and all of the departments who are represented here and across the city to ensure that the projects that happen directly engage residents, respond to historic racist disinvestment in parts of our city, and impact the lives of people across St. Louis in positive ways. Again, thank you so much, Mayor Jones, for your commitment to the urgency of addressing traffic violence and the experience of getting around our city. I can't wait to see what comes next.